Hello everyone. Today I'll be giving a presentation on the research and findings of the research project, the cost of dual tasking, the effect of walking, talking, and texting. So a little bit of background knowledge to begin with. The idea of dual tasking is to perform two tasks of varying complexity and nature simultaneously, and understanding how these tasks are affected during this simultaneous performance. As you can see there, the concept of dual tasking is actually very prominent in our daily lives. Very rarely are we actually performing one task in complete isolation. For example, right now you may be listening to my voice, you may also be reading the content on the slide, you may even be thinking about what the next meal you're going to eat after this will be. However, when we perform these tasks in a simultaneous fashion, each is subject to a dual task effect, and this describes the change in performance of a task whilst trying to complete a separate task at the same time. And this can either be a positive effect, known as a benefit, or more frequently and commonly, a negative effect or a cost. So the purpose of this particular research task was to examine the interrelationship between performance decrements in a combined walking and talking task and a combined walking and texting task. By observing these relationships, researchers can gain an understanding as to the risk taken when performing these tasks simultaneously, ultimately providing indications as to whether or not these risks can be deemed worthwhile and if they may potentially decrease performance to the point of also reducing the safety of performing each task. Additionally, it was hypothesized that there would be evident dual tasks cost observed for each of the three tasks across all of the conditions performed. In order to collect data for walking measures, a system called gait right was used. This involves a stretch of carpet, which in our case was 10 meters long, with several sensors built in to register where a step is taken each time. Once the system has been calibrated, each step on the stretch of carpet triggers the sensors beneath the foot in order to perform a digital reconstruction of the walking pattern relative to each triggered sensor's location. This allows for the determination of velocities, stride and step lengths, and cadence, using this digital representation of each triggered sensor. In our study, we used this software to provide quantitative values of walking performance, and these were used as the measures with which we calculated the reduction in dual task performance. Once the experiment was set up and ready, participants were asked to complete a series of trials. This included an 8-meter walk on the gait right surface to establish baseline measures of velocity, step length, and cadence, a baseline talking task where participants completed serial subtraction in sevens for 20 seconds starting with a randomly provided 3-digit number with the correct and incorrect number of answers recorded, a baseline texting task where participants had to type as many words as possible from a provided list of 5-letter words within 20 seconds, the measure there being the number of correct characters and incorrect characters per second, a walking and talking task where the serial 7 subtraction was repeated for the duration of a walk across the gait right surface, and a walking and texting task where the texting task was completed for the duration of a walk across the gait right surface. All walking tasks were completed without footwear, and the baseline talking and texting tasks were completed in a seated, comfortable position. All of the collected data was entered into a shared Excel file to make statistical analysis simpler. Once all the tasks were completed and all data had been recorded, the dual task effect for each task was calculated using the formula for percentage change, with a positive result inferring a dual task benefit and a negative result indicating a dual task cost. This was followed by an Excel correlation function and a t-test function to determine the statistical strength and significance of the findings. The correlation function was used to indicate whether there is a discernible relationship between these variables. For example, if the reduction in performance increases with a walking task and the walking and talking task, does this also increase with the walking texting task? Additionally, the t-test function was used in order to determine whether this finding is significant. That is, whether this finding is purely random or if there is a meaningful relationship that is likely to be repeated in a real-world context. With this test, a p-value, the final finding, below 0.05 serves as the threshold for statistical significance. From the results, it was found that, regardless of the type of task it was paired with, reductions were observed in walking performance, with all velocities, step length, and cadence. Additionally, when texting was combined with walking, there were less characters typed per second with a greater frequency of character errors per second. However, when the talking was combined with walking, there was a smaller number of incorrect subtractions per second alongside a smaller number of correct subtractions per second. Finally, it is important to note that despite all these findings, there were no significant correlations found to support any conclusions made from this data. There are a number of factors that may contribute to the inconclusive findings of our study. First, the relatively small sample used during the experiment would significantly decrease the statistical power of the findings, which is shown in the low statistical p-value. By only recruiting students enrolled into a winter semester unit across 2 university campuses, which is an optional period of study that is therefore not as popular among students throughout the year, only 13 participants were used in the study. When higher sample sizes are used in research, the ability to draw conclusive findings from results becomes much stronger due to the increased pool of data with which we can analyze. Therefore, if these findings were consistent in a study that replicated this protocol but utilized a broader pool of participants, for example, recruiting all students studying a particular unit during standard study periods, whether that be semester 1 or 2, this may lead to significant findings being found. Additionally, during the texting task, the influence of autocorrect may have reduced the reliability of the results. Some characters that may have been typed incorrectly could have been corrected and not counted. However, it could also have altered words that were typed correctly to different words that the participants used more frequently throughout their everyday life. For example, typing in sound, but having this corrected to sounds. This would affect the reliability of both variables. However, this is easily modifiable for future study, as the majority of smartphones have the capability to turn off autocorrect, providing more reliable results should this experiment be repeated. Finally, to explain the appearance of the lower number of incorrect calculations in a dual tasking context for serial 7 subtraction, the overall frequency of answers given can be referred to as the reasoning behind this data. When referring to the data collection sheet, it can be clearly seen that the total number of answers given is significantly reduced compared to the standalone texting task, with some students not registering any response for the duration of the walk. As such, this reduction in incorrect answers does not necessarily reflect that the task was made any easier in a dual task context, but rather that it was so difficult that the frequency of any answer given, whether correct or incorrect, was greatly reduced. Although this does affect the reliability of the data, this point cannot necessarily be improved, as instances such as this are part of the outcome of the experiment. In conclusion, despite observations that there may be a link between reductions in dual task performance for a walking and talking and a walking and texting task, it cannot be conclusively determined that there is any correlation between these reductions. Future research, to improve on our findings, may wish to incorporate larger testing groups in order to assist with obtaining greater significance of any key findings by increasing the sample size used. As discussed, this project was limited in the number of participants recruited for the study, which is a likely factor in our lack of significant correlations found. Additionally, procedures to ensure the influence of autocorrect is removed from the texting task would increase the reliability of findings in relation to this task, and as previously discussed, these are relatively simple adjustments to make.